Surah Al Jinn. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أوحي إلي أنه استمع نفر من الجن فقالوا إنا سمعنا قرآنا عجبا. Say, it has been revealed to me that a company of jinns listened to the Quran. They said, we have really heard a wonderful recital. The jinns had evidently heard of previous revelations, that of Moses and the error of Trinitarian Christianity. The community from which they come have all sorts of good and bad persons, but they are determined to preach the good message of unity which they have heard and believed in. The Holy Quran would be to them a wonderful recital, both in subject matter and in the circumstance that it had been come in Arabia among a pagan and ignorant nation. يهدي إلى الرشد فآمنا به ولن نشرك بربنا أحدا. It gives guidance to the right, and we have believed therein. We shall not join in worship any gods with our Lord. وأنه تعالى جد ربنا ما اتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا. And exalted is the majesty of our Lord. He has taken neither a wife nor a son. The actual paganism and also the doctrine of a son begotten by Allah, which would also imply a wife of whom he has begotten. وَأَنَّهُ كَانَ يَقُولُ سَفِيحُنَا عَلَى اللَّهِ شَطَطًا. There were some foolish ones among us who used to utter extravagant lies against Allah. وَأَنَّا ظَنَنَّا أَن لَّن تَقُولَ الْإِنسُ وَالْجِنُّ عَلَى اللَّهِ كَذِبًا. But we do think that no man or jinn should say aught that is untrue against Allah. No one ought to entertain false notions about Allah, for by joining false gods in our ideas of worship, we degrade our conception of ourselves and the duty we owe to our Creator and Cherisher, to whom we have to give a final account of life and conduct. If we worship idols or heavenly bodies, or human beings, or any creatures, or false fancies born of self or foolish abstractions, or the lusts and desires of our own hearts, we are not only doing violence to truth, but we are causing discord in the harmony of the world. وَأَنَّهُ كَانَ رِجَالٌ مِّنَ الْإِنسِ يَعُوذُونَ بِرِجَالٍ مِّنَ الْجِنِّ فَزَادُوهُمْ رَهَقًا. True, there were persons among mankind who took shelter with persons among the jinns, but they increased them into further error. If human beings think that by a resort to some spirits they can shelter themselves from the struggles and actualities of their own lives, they are sadly mistaken. They must tree their own way, as the Scots would say. It is folly to try to escape from the duties which they can understand in their own natural surroundings, or to try to avoid the consequence of their own acts. Only such persons do so as do not realize that they will ultimately have to answer in the judgment seat of Allah, whose first outpost is in their own conscience. وَأَنَّهُمْ ظَنُّوا كَمَا ظَنَنْتُمْ أَن لَّن يَبْعَثَ اللَّهُ أَحَدًا. And they came to think as you thought, that Allah would not raise up anyone to judgment. وَأَنَّا لَمَسْنَا السَّمَاءَ فَوَجَدْنَاهَا مُلِئَتْ حَرَسًا شَدِيدًا وَشُهُبًا. And we pried into the secrets of heaven, but we found it fitted with stern guards and flaming fires. The speakers here have repented of sin and evil, but they recognize that there are evil ones among them who love stealth and praying. But their dark plots will be defeated by vigilant guardians of the right, whose ripples of attacks of evil is figured by the shafts of meteoric light in the heavens. وَأَنَّا كُنَّا نَقْعُدُ مِنْهَا مَقَائِدَ لِلسَّمْعِ فَمَنْ يَسْتَمِعِ الْآنَ يَجِدْ لَهُ شِهَابًا رَصَدًا. We used indeed to sit there in hidden stations, still hearing. But any who listens now will find a flaming fire watching them in ambush. What is the force of now? It refers to the early Makkan period of revelation. It means that whatever excuse there may have been before for people to try to speak out the hidden truths of the unseen world through jinns, there was none now, as the perspicuous Quran had restored the message of unity and cleared religion of all the cobwebs, mysteries, and falsehoods with which priestcraft and pious fraud had overlaid it. The result is that such seekers after false hidden knowledge will find themselves confronted now by the flaming fire, which, like the shafts of meteoric light, will lie in wait for and nip such priestcraft and black magic in the bud. وَأَنَّا لَا نَدْرِي أَشَرٌّ أُرِيدَ بِمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ أَمْ أَرَادَ بِهِمْ رَبُّهُمْ رَشَدًا. And we understand not whether ill is intended to those on earth, or whether their Lord really intends to guide them to right conduct. وَأَنَّا مِنَّا الصَّالِحُونَ وَمِنَّا دُونَ ذَلِكَ كُنَّا طَرَائِقَ قِدَدًا. There are among us some that are righteous, and some the contrary. We follow divergent paths. To these jinns, this gospel is yet new, and appears like a flaming sword which destroys falsehood, while it protects truth. They frankly confess that they do not clearly understand whether on the whole it will be a mercy to mankind or a punishment for mankind, forsaking the paths of Allah. But they rightly feel that it must be a blessing if all seek right guidance. وَأَنَّا ظَنَنَّا أَن لَّن نُّعْجِزَ اللَّهَ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَن نُّعْجِزَهُ هَرَبًا. But we think that we can by no means frustrate Allah throughout the earth, nor can we escape Him by flight. وَأَنَّا لَمَّا سَمِعْنَا الْهُدَىٰ آمَنَّا بِهِ فَمَنْ يُؤْمِنُ بِرَبِّهِ وَلَا يَخَافُ بَخْسًا وَلَا رَهَقًا. And as for us, since we have listened to the guidance, we have accepted it, and any who believes in his Lord has no fear either of a short account or of any injustice. In any case, they know that Allah's truth and Allah's plan must prevail, and no one can frustrate Allah's purpose or escape from it. Why not then bring their will into conformity with it and find peace as they have found by the acceptance of faith? Possibly, from the world standards, it may be that a believer suffers for his faith. It may be laughed at, persecuted, and actually hurt in mind, body, or estate, but he is not perturbed. He takes it all cheerfully because he knows that when his full account is made up real again against apparent loss, he is a gainer rather than a loser, and his faith tells him that Allah is just God and will never allow him to suffer any injustice or permit the account of his merit to appear one with shorter than it. وَأَنَّا لَمَّا سَمِعْنَا الْهُدَىٰ آمَنَّا بِهِ فَمَن يُؤْمِنُ بِرَبِّهِ فَلَا يَخَافُ بَخْسًا وَلَا رَهَقًا. And as for us, since we have listened to the guidance, we have accepted it, and any who believe in his Lord has no fear either of a short account or of any injustice. وَأَنَّا مِنَّا الْمُسْلِمُونَ وَمِنَّا الْقَاسِطُونَ فَمَنْ أَسْلَمَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ تَحَرَّوْا رَشَدًا. Amongst us, some that submit their wills to Allah, and some that swerve from justice. Now, those who submit their will, they have sought out the path of right conduct. Anyone who responds to true guidance and submits his will to Allah finds that he makes rapid progress to the path of right conduct and right life. He gets more and more assurance that his destination is the garden of bliss. وَأَمَّا الْقَاسِطُونَ فَكَانُوا لِجَهَنَّمَ حَطَبًا. But those who serve, they are but fuel for hellfire. Anyone who responds to the guidance and submits his will to Allah finds that he makes rapid changes in the path of right conduct and right life. He gets more and more assurance that his destination is the garden of bliss. An unjust life carries its own condemnation. It does no good to itself or to anyone else. It bears no fruit. It becomes merely fuel for the fire of punishment. وَالَّذِي اسْتَقَامُوا عَلَى الطَّرِيقَةِ لَأَسْقَيْنَاهُم مَّاءً غَدَقًا. And Allah's message is, if they, the pagans, had only remained on the right way, we should certainly have bestowed on them rain in abundance. Rain, literally water, stands for all kinds of blessings, material, moral, and spiritual. All blessings come by way of trial. The more we have, the more is expected of us. A man of gifts, talents, or insight is expected to show a higher standard of love and unselfishness than one less gifted, just as a rich man is expected to give more in charity than a poor man. لِنَفْتِنَهُمْ فِيهِ وَمَنْ يُعْرِضْ عَنْ ذِكْرِ رَبِّهِ يَسْلُكْهُ عَذَابًا صَعَدًا. That we might try them by that means. But if any turns away from the remembrance of his Lord, he will cause him to undergo ever-growing chastisement. To remember Allah is to realize his presence, acknowledge his goodness, and accept his guidance. If we fail to do so by deliberately turning away, he will withdraw his grace, and that will be a severe penalty indeed. وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا. And the places of worship are for Allah alone, so invoke not anyone along with Allah. This is Makkan Surah, and masjid must be understood not in the later technical sense of a mosque, but in the root meaning of any place or occasion of worship or humble prostration in the service of Allah, or any limbs or faculties or accessories used in such worship. Example, hands and feet, lips and voice, understanding or organization. A number of meanings therefore follow. 1. No place of worship whatever should be used for the worship of any other but Allah the true God. The Kaaba was then full of idols, but the idols and their votaries were usurpers. 2. Worship should not be mixed up with vain objects, but should be reserved for the sincere service of Allah. 3. All our gifts are for Allah's service, which include the service of His creatures and not for our vain glory. وأنه لما قام عبد الله يدعوه وأنه لما قام عبد الله يدعوه ويكونون عليه لبدا. Yet when the devotee of Allah stood up to invoke him, they just make round him a dense crowd. The devotee of Allah is the Holy Prophet Muhammad. The immediate reference was to the pagan Quraysh who were then in possession of the Kaaba and who put all sorts of obstacles and indignities in the way of the Holy Prophet for preaching the one true God and denouncing idol worship. They used to surround him and mob him and to treat him as if he was guilty of some dreadful crime. But the wider application refers to the habit of the world to make a marked man of any who diverges from the beaten paths of their favorite sins and who pleads earnestly for the cause of truth and righteousness. They ridicule him, they surround him with jeers and obloquy, and they try to make the physical conditions of his life as difficult for him as possible. قل إنما أدعو ربي ولا أشرك به أحدا. Say, I do no more than invoke my Lord, and I join not with him any false god. قل إني لا أملك لكم ضرا ولا رشدا. Say, it is not in my power to cause you harm or to bring you to right conduct. Do not suppose that I am going to harm you individually or socially. The very opposite is my wish. But I cannot force you to right conduct. That must depend upon this purification of your own faith and will. قل إني لن يجيرني من الله أحد ولن أجد من دونه ملتحدا. Say, no one can deliver me from Allah if I were to disobey him, nor should I find refuge except in him. My mission is from Allah. I cannot choose but obey. He has charged me to deliver the message, and if I were to disobey him, I would myself be worthy of his punishment, and no one can save me. From every kind of trouble and difficulty, my only refuge is in him. I must proclaim his message, otherwise I am false to the mission he has entrusted to me. إلا بلاغا من الله ورسالاته ومن يعص الله ورسوله وإن له نار جهنم خالدين فيها أبدا. Unless I deliver what I receive from Allah and His message, for any that disobey Allah and His messenger, for them is hell, they shall dwell therein forever. حتى إذا رأوا ما يوعدون فسيعلمون من أضعف ناصرا وأقل عددا. At length, when they see their own eyes that which they are promised, then will they know who it is that is weakest in his helper and least important in point of numbers. When the hereafter arrives and true values are restored, they will see clearly that the promise of Allah was true and that death on this earth was not the end of all things. Then they will see that those who were accounted weak on this earth will, in the realm of reality, be the strong ones. Those who seem to have no following here will have there all the great and true ones with them to help them and welcome them to their own ranks. قل إن أدري أقريب ما توعدون أم يجعل له ربي أمدا. Say, I know not whether the punishment which you are promised is near or whether my Lord will appoint for it a distant time. The coming of judgment is certain, but exact time relatively to our standards on this earth, no one can tell. Allah alone knows it. Even a prophet of Allah, as such, does not know the mysteries of the unseen world, except in so far as they have been revealed to him by Allah's revelation. عالم الغيب فلا يظهر على غيبه أحدا. He alone knows the unseen, nor does he make anyone acquainted with his secrets. The unseen has two aspects. The relative unseen is so with difference to a particular person because of the intervention of time, space, or particular circumstances. For example, I cannot see today a house which I saw last year because it has since been pulled down. Or I cannot in Lahore see the gateway of India in Bombay, although anyone in Bombay can see it. Or I cannot see the satellites of Jupiter with the naked eye, though I can through a telescope. But absolute unseen, absolute mystery is something which no creature can know or see, except in so far as Allah reveals it to him. And Allah reveals such thing to the extent that is good for men, through his chosen messengers, among whom the greatest is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The exact time of the hour of judgment has not been so shown, because we must not wait for it, but live as if it is to be at this minute. See, إلا من ارتضى من رسول فإنه يسلك من بين يديه ومن خلفه رصدا. Except a messenger whom he has chosen, and then he makes a band of watchers march before him and behind him. Revelation is not a mechanical or material thing. It has to be safeguarded from being distorted or corrupted by ignorance, selfishness, or the powers of evil. How can its precious and subtle work and spiritual safeguards against its misuse by human folly or the perversity of evil be expressed in plain human words? You can imagine a very great treasure which has to be transmitted. To guard it against evilly disposed persons, a strong escort is required. To march in front and behind, so as to protect it from all sides. When it reaches its destination, the escort presents its credentials and an invoice showing the treasure being transmitted. Then the destined receiver knows that it has come intact and feels satisfied. So about spiritual revelation. The Prophet ﷺ recognized the credentials and checked the contents of the tablets of his own heart and insight. He has then no doubt that it is a true message from Allah, and that those who bring it are the true messengers of their Lord. لِيَعْلَمَ أَنْ قَدْ أَبْلَغُوا رِسَالَاتِ رَبِّهِمْ وَأَحَاطَ بِمَا لَدَيْهِمْ وَأَحْصَى كُلَّ شَيْءٍ عَدَدًا. The band of watchers, and he may know it is better to continue he to refer to the Prophet who receives the message from the watchers. Ahata surrounds, encompasses, encloses, guards on all sides, keeps under his own possession and control, and does not allow to be corrupted or debased. In the spiritual kingdom, as indeed in all things, Allah's knowledge, wisdom, and plan comprehend all things, great and small. There is nothing which we do, nothing which happens that is outside that thought. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. This is from the Holy Quran, English translation of meanings and commentary, revised and edited by the Presidency of Islamic Researchers, IFTA, Call and Guidance. Sadaqallahu al-Azim.